Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is a piece of God. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened, is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God is a master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, is produced by the Society of Knowledge Incorporated. The Society is an interdenominational, religious, spiritual organization. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common, and that's the knowledge that there is a being, by no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Buddha, Jehovah, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. We know that there is indeed an almighty being. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show, to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed almighty. Today is September the 26th, 2019. I remind you that fact because tonight, as we are on most Thursdays, thank you, Brother Phil, for joining us on Facebook. Thank you, Andre, for joining us on Facebook. As we're live, as we are on most Thursdays, and I remind you that fact because this is an open discussion. It's a two-way conversation. Brother Phil, I invite you to join the conversation on Facebook. You post your comments. Andre, I invite you to do the same thing. And I also invite you, looking on Facebook, to hit the like button. So that way we will know that you watched and we will be able to keep in touch with you. So hit the like button. Also encourage you to hit the share button and also start a watch button. And not only do I ask you to do that so that we can communicate with you, but I ask you to do that so that you can help us deliver the message that there is an almighty being, that God is almighty. So when you do that, you're actually helping us. If there's something that's going on in your church, your mosque, your masjid, your synagogue, your temple, your place of worship, and you want to share that information with the world, Brother Phil, there's something that's going on in your place of worship, post a comment on Facebook, and that way I can read it out over the air and get that information all around the world. Sister Andre, the same thing. There's something that's going on. Please post your comment so we can get that information out there. If there's something that's going on in your nonprofit organization and you want to let the world know about it, post your comment on Facebook. Those of you that are watching by TV, call in the telephone number that's on your screen. That's 504-483-3336. Call in and share your information. More important to me, more important than what's going on in your place of worship, more important than what's going on in your nonprofit. If there's something that God has done for you in your life, a miracle that God has worked in your life. And Sister Andre, I use that term literally, a miracle, because the God that I'm here to tell you about is working miracles. That's right. September 26, 2019, God is working miracles. God worked miracles today. God, as I speak right now, God is working miracles. So God has worked a miracle in your life. Post your testimony on Facebook so I can read it out over the air. Call in and share your testimony. You know, it may be someone that's going through some tough times right now, whether it's financial problems, health problems, relationship problems. Somebody is dealing with something right now and they're about to give up hope, just feeling overwhelmed. They may have tried all different types of things, nothing solved their problem. Maybe you went through a similar situation and God worked a miracle and solved your situation. Share your testimony. Your testimony might be the one thing that someone needs to hear that will strengthen them, that will encourage them, that will help them to hold on until God works on their issue. So I invite you to post your comments. Sister Dina, thank you for joining us on Facebook. And again, Sister Dina, Sister Andre, please hit that like button and hit that share button. All right, we have a packed show tonight. I'm speaking a little bit fast. And Actually, what I think I'll do is just get straight into our show. All right. As we start our show, we always start off with our announcements. And after our announcements, we go in our testimonies. After that, we go to our religious spiritual study. And after our religious spiritual study, it says, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, coming out of the first book of Thessalonians. Okay, after we go through that, then, and tonight, our study will be the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Okay, so we have various topics that we discuss and study. Last couple of weeks, we were studying the Babylon, ancient religions in Babylon. Before that, we've studied all different types of topics. This week, we're studying the African Methodist Episcopal Church. You know, a lot of us will hear about different things, don't really have too much of an understanding about what they are. So if you're a member of the AME Church, a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, you're already aware of. If you're not a member of the AME Church, you might learn a few things tonight. And, the more we learn about different religions, different spiritual beliefs, different spiritual ideas, the more we learn that we have things in common. So we might have a label, this person might be labeled AME. That one might be labeled First God in Christ. Another one might be labeled Buddhist. Another might be labeled Muslim. The more we learn about each other, the more we find out that all those labels really start falling away. Because when we start getting to the heart, the root of our beliefs, we find out that we do believe that there is an almighty being. No matter what religion you go to, you're going to find that same concept, that same precept, that there is indeed an almighty being. All right? Our words of inspiration tonight will come out of the book of Exodus, chapter 8, starting in verse 10. And our announcements, as you see on the screen there, that is our main website. That's www.godisalmighty.org, www.godisalmighty.org. I encourage you to place that website in your web browser, lock it in, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can visit that website. And there are links to all of our social media platforms. So we have a religious discussion blog, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Particularly go to our YouTube. Go to our YouTube page, and you'll see we have hundreds of videos that have been posted. We've been doing this program for over 15 years, 16 years. We've been here on the air, and this is Cox Cable Orleans Channel 76. So, we were on air before Katrina, and we've been delivering this message. Actually, the Society of Knowledge was incorporated in 1979. So that's 40 years we've been delivering this message, that same message that God is almighty. So there's a lot of information. I invite you to go to our main website. You can find out a lot more about the Society of Knowledge, who it is, what we do. And what you'll find out is that there's only one thing that we really do, and that's deliver the message that God is almighty. Rock of Ages Ministries International, that's Apostle Ronnie Bailey. I haven't been able to attend any of their tapings recently. All of us have things that we, the Spirit be moving us to do, and hopefully the Spirit's going to give me the opportunity in the near future to tape a show again with the Rock of Ages Ministries International. But that's their main website, www.ronniebailey.com. I invite you to visit their website, and you can learn a lot about what they're doing, not only in the New Orleans area, but in the Lafayette area also. New Orleans Peacekeepers, 504-500-1706. I had a discussion a little bit earlier today about all of the violence that's going on here in the city of New Orleans. It seems as though every day we're hearing about a shooting, and at least every week, one or two people being killed. Such violence. And the Peacekeepers, that's an organization that's operating, going out in our community, walking around, helping folks resolve their differences without picking up a gun, helping folks talk through whatever problems, whatever issues they may have with each other. Instead of picking up a gun, just opening up some dialogue. I want to thank Minister Willie Muhammad and the members of the mosque out in New Orleans East for spearheading that effort. And I remind you that you do not have to be a member of the Nation of Islam to work with the peacekeepers. I've gone out when they're first starting up here in the city of New Orleans. I went out and worked with them. So it's a worthwhile thing to do. And instead of just complaining about the violence, you can actually get involved. And that's the New Orleans Peacekeepers. That's the phone number. I encourage you to give them a call. You can call 311 in the city of New Orleans. You can call 311 between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. for free smoke detectors. You know, it's still kind of warm out there, but the weather is starting to change slightly starting to change. And the cooler it gets, folks will be firing up those space heaters, firing up all different type of furnaces. Make sure your smoke detectors are operating. You know, and if you can't get a free one, go ahead and spend $25, $30 and get a smoke detector. It could save your life. You know, you go out in the club and you spend more than that in one evening at a club. Go ahead and get a smoke detector, install it. If you have one, check your batteries. You know, it does you no good having a smoke detector up there on your ceiling and the batteries aren't in there, the batteries are dead. So check your batteries, and if you don't have a smoke detector, go get one. Please check your vehicle's back seats for babies. Just this past week, we had reports on the news about children being left in the back seat. Thank you, Sister Connie, for joining us on Facebook. Sister Connie, I invite you to hit that share button. I'm asking you to please hit that share button and also hit the like button. Help us deliver this message that God is Almighty. Going back to what I was saying about checking your back seat. You know, sometimes, things have changed. Let's just put it that way. Things have changed. You know, when I was younger, when I was a child, we'd go to the store, and my mama would leave us in the car. Would just leave us in the car. Be in the store, looked like be in the store for an hour, 2 hours, and we sitting in the car. Roll the windows down, still sitting in the car. Things have changed. I don't know if it's really the global warming that's doing it, but things have indeed changed. It doesn't take but a few minutes for the temperature in a car to get to the point where it's life-threatening. So, understand that you may think that you're going to leave your child in the back seat and go in the store just to pick up one item and run back out, and there's no problem. But it's so easy to run in that store to pick up one item and get distracted, and the next thing you know, you've been in that store for 20 or 25 minutes, and you come out and here your baby is suffering from heat stroke. So don't do it. Okay, that's the best advice. Do not do it. Sister Connie, I know you, I'm sorry, Kanina, Sister Kanina, and I apologize. The writing was kind of small. Sister Kanina, thank you for joining us on Facebook. Brother Eves, thank you, Brother Eves. We're going to have to get out. You're an avid golfer. I haven't hit a ball in maybe 20 years, but I still might be able to give you a run for your money. So I'm talking smack here. All right, Brother Eves. 2020 census has jobs that are available. You can apply online now. And there's a phone number, 1-855-562-2020. There's excellent pay, flexible hours, paid training, temporary jobs. We like to put this information out there about available jobs, and I encourage you, if you know of a position that's open, somebody that's hiring, let me know so we can put that information on the air, get it out there. Folks out there are looking for jobs now. Times are tough. When we look at the cost of housing in the New Orleans area, everything is going up. Folks are working, two jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. So anytime that we get some information about positions that are available, that jobs that are hiring or places that are hiring, we like to get that information out there. So if you know someone that's hiring, let me know. You can take and drop me a message on Facebook and let me know. You can always give me a call, 504-821-3221, and we can get that information, share that information. You can be a blessing to somebody by helping them to find a job. Okay, religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, coming out of first book of Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. And we're going to talk tonight, we're going to do some studying about the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And I'm not a member of the AME Church, but my father actually was a minister in the AME Church. I was not brought up in the AME Church. I wasn't brought up around him. But as I grew older, I learned that he was actually a minister in the AME Church. So we hear about the AME, and to some of us it might sound a little exotic. We might, it's kind of like some of us hear about Jehovah's Witness, and we don't know what that is and kind of have some misperceptions about it. So on this show, we like to go ahead and do a little research and get that information out there. And as I said earlier, the more we know about each other, the more we find that we have things in common, and that breaks down some of those walls. So the AME Church, and this information that I'm reading tonight, this information came off the internet, and actually it came from the AME's website. So they have an official website, so you just Google the AME Church, and actually you'll see AMEC, African Methodist Episcopal Church. You'll see that, and this information, as I said, comes directly off of their website. Okay? That symbol that you see there, that's their symbol. And as you see, the African Methodist Episcopal, and something that you might notice that the colors, the liberation colors, black, red, and green, you'll see the cross in the middle of it, symbolizing Christianity. And I didn't read what that anvil, that other symbol that you see in there, that's transposed on that cross, but that's an anvil. And one of the things that, as I say, I don't know the official explanation as to why that's on there, but one thing that I know about an anvil is something that a blacksmith uses to form metal. Okay? That's a tool that's used to form metal. So whether or not that symbolism is to symbolize that the AME Church is indeed a tool that's been used to shape, not metal, but to shape men's minds. But that's something that we can do a little bit more research on that. But the AME, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, grew out of the Free African Society, which Richard Allen and Absalom Jones and others established in Philadelphia in 1787. And as you see on your screen now, on the left of your screen, Richard Allen, on the right of your screen, Absalom Jones. And now just think, now this is 1787. Sister Carolyn, thank you for joining us on Facebook. And if you have some information about the AME, please share that. Brother Ease, may I ask is if you hit that like button or give us a comment, maybe you know something about the AME Church. But let me just continue on with this information. So Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, and others established the AME Church in Philadelphia in 1787. Now understand something. Look, this is why they established it. What you see on your screen right now, that's a picture of St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church. Okay, Methodist, not African Methodist, but Methodist Episcopal Church. So Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, they were members of the Methodist Episcopal Church. That's in 1787. And look what happened. It said Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, established the AME in Philadelphia in 1787 when officials at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church pulled blacks off their knees while praying. Now, understand that. You're in a church, and the white members of the church going to pull you off your knees from praying because of segregation. So this is 1787. Now the picture that, and look, something I rarely do this. I rarely do, but I got to back up. Okay, and I'm backing this up, backing these slides up. Look what's on your screen there. Okay, 1787. Slavery is full blown. Okay, slavery would not end for almost another 100 years. But look at the gentleman that you see on the screen. When you're looking at them on the screen, they don't look like your typical idea of what a black man looked like back in 1787. See, so we got to take and get our minds right. We got to sometimes, get our understanding together so that we don't have all these ideas that every black man, every African back in 1787 was running around naked or half-dressed and looking wild. Look at those fellas right there. This is 1787. And they were educated. Understand something. They were educated, and I'm saying that because they formed the African Methodist Episcopal Church because they were standing up for their rights, saying that, look, when we go in church and pray, we ought to be able to pray right with the white people. We shouldn't have to go in the back or on the side. We ought to be able to kneel down there and pray. But look what it said. Even in the church, the white people in the church, in the Methodist Episcopal Church, the white folks in there said, no, and pulled them off their knees. Thank you for joining, Jason. Hit that like button. Thank you for joining us. It's one of my sons, Jason, joined us on Facebook. Now, let me go on. The FAS members, and that's the Free African Society members, discovered just how far American Methodists will go to enforce racial discrimination against African Americans. Hence, these members of St. George's made plans to transform their mutual aid society into an African congregation. Although most wanted to affiliate with the Protestant Episcopal Church, Allen led a small group who resolved to remain History Methodists. In 1794, Bethel AME was dedicated with Allen as pastor. To establish Bethel's independence from interfering white Methodists, Allen formed a Delaware, former Delaware slave, successfully sued in the Pennsylvania courts in 1807 and 1815 for the right of his congregation to exist as an independent institution. Because black Methodists in other Middle Atlantic communities encountered racism and desired religious autonomy, Allen called them to meet in Philadelphia to form a new Wesleyan denomination, the AME. Okay? Now that's what you see on your screen now. That's just a depiction of a court back in 1800s. As much as I researched, I could not find a photo or a depiction of Richard Allen arguing in the courts. And Sister Dina, we're looking at Philadelphia. All right. Where did they live at this time? Sister Dina, comment on Facebook. Where did they live at this time? We were not supposed to know how to pray or to pray to white man's God. Well, you're absolutely correct, and we're going to touch upon that in just a minute. But going back to what I was reading here right now, and that is, going back to what I was reading, that this is Allen, Richard Allen, a former slave, successfully sued in the Pennsylvania courts. Now, see, that kind of stuff just could blow your mind. Slavery is at its height in 1807. And here you have a black man that has enough intelligence to go in court and sue, it says successfully sue, for his congregation to exist as an independent institution. So what that's telling me is that they were trying to say, well, if you want to have your black church, your AME, that you can have that, but you still have to be controlled by the white church. Okay? You can have your black church, but you're still under control of the white church. Richard Allen went to court 1807. We talk about things being hard now and all the obstacles in our way, and we talk about white supremacy and all of that right now, and some of us feel beat down and that we don't have a chance. Here's a former slave in 1807 when slavery was still running rampant. And he had the strength, the nerve enough, the intelligence enough to go to court and win his case against racism. All right. The most significant era of denominational development occurred during the Civil War and Reconstruction. What you see on your screen now, that's a photo that I was able to find on the web about of Africans, African Americans, black men that fought in the Civil War. And as you see, they're holding their weapons and they have their uniforms on. All right. Sister Candace, thank you for joining us. But look what it says. It says the most significant era of denominational development occurred during the Civil War and Reconstruction. So the AME Church grew during the Civil War and Reconstruction. And it grew because oftentimes, with the permission of Union Army officials, AME clergy moved into the states of the collapsing Confederacy to pull newly freed slaves into their denomination. I seek my brethren, the title of an often repeated sermon that Theophilus G. Stewart preached in South Carolina, became a clarion call to evangelize fellow blacks in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Texas, and many other parts of the South. Hence, in 1880, AME membership reached 400,000 because of its rapid spread below the Mason-Dixon line. While the AME is doctrinally Methodist, clergy, scholars, and laypersons have written important works which demonstrate the distinctive theology and praxis which have defined this Wesleyan body. Bishop Benjamin W. Arnett, in an address to the 1893 World's Parliament of Religions, and as you see on your screen now, that World's Parliament of Religions reminded the audience of the presence of blacks in the formation of Christianity. You know, we talk about racism. We talk about racism existing and even in the church. Yes, Sister Dina, yeah, we've always found ways to learn, even though we were suppressed entirely back then. Black people are brilliant in many ways. See, God is almighty. No matter what conditions you find yourself in, God can make a way. The same way slavery was full-blown back in 1807, and Richard Allen, a former slave, was able to successfully argue against racism in the court system. God made a way. And that's encouraging because with all the obstacles that Richard Allen was facing, God worked a way for him. So the things that we go through today, God can work a way for us. God indeed is almighty. So this is Bishop Bishop Arnett, back in 1893, reminding the audience of the presence of blacks in the formation of Christianity. Bishop Benjamin T. Tanner wrote in 1895 in The Color of Solomon that biblical scholars wrongly portrayed the son of David as a white man. In the post-civil rights era, theologians James H. Cone, Cecil W. Cone, and Jacqueline Grant, who came out of the AME tradition, critiqued Eurocentric Christianity and African American churches for their shortcomings in fully impacting the plight of those oppressed by racism, sexism, and economic disadvantage. And on your screen that you see right now, that's an image of a black Solomon. Now I'm going to tell you, when you go online right now, you go ahead and Google King Solomon. 98% of the images that you're going to come up with are going to be images of someone with Caucasian features. And I will direct your attention right now to your Bible, the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 5 through 6. And this is Solomon describing himself. Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyards have I not kept. I am black, but comely. So how are you going to have statues and pictures and portraits of Solomon looking like a Caucasian when the Bible itself tells us, I am black, yet comely? So this is what Bishop Benjamin was writing about in 1895 in The Color of Solomon. Okay, The Color of Solomon, reminding folks, as they talk about the Eurocentric Christianity, reminding folks that black folks, black people, black men and women played prominent roles in that religion called Christianity, played prominent roles in that religion called Judaism. Prominent roles. All right. What you see on your screen right now, and we're wrapping up this discussion, but today, the African Methodist Episcopal Church has membership in 20 Episcopal districts in 39 countries on 5 continents. The work of the church is administered by 21 active bishops and 9 general officers who manage the departments of the church. All right, so that is going to wrap up our discussion tonight about the AME Church. And what was so important is, and again, I see a question, Sister Dina, that's again in the Song of Solomon. Look in your Bible, in the Old Testament, Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 5 through 6. Chapter 1, verses 5 through 6. That scripture that I read just now. So as I was saying, let me pull let's pull this off on Facebook. All right. We'll stop just a minute before we get into our words of inspiration. I want to stop just a minute. You know, what I read just now about the AME Church, and I know that some folks are going to listen to this broadcast and they're going to feel uneasy, okay? They're going to feel uneasy because they're saying, wow, you know, you're talking about black stuff on there. Okay, you're talking about black stuff. Well, get some understanding now, okay? All right, we have a caller. That's Apostle Caller. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here. I can't be nothing but here, and I hear you loud and clear.
All right. How you doing, Apostle?
Doing well. I wanted to add 5 quick things to your conversation, if I may.
Yes, sir. And for those of you that are watching by Facebook, the audio might be a little bit low, but we have a caller that is called in the show, and that's the Apostle. He has a program. Apostle, when does your program air?
Mondays at 1 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Saturdays at 12 o'clock.
All right. Mondays at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. and Saturdays at 12 noon. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Sister Veronica, Brother Raymond, thank you for joining us on Facebook. Okay, what you saying, Apostle?
All right, I got 5 quick things, and one of them all of them has to do with the subject.
Yes,
one, the other day I was at the post office, and I was walking out the post office, and you know how some people talk. I saw a couple of young men, and they were just about to walk by me, and I spoke out loud. I say, "How y'all doing? Black men, keep your head up. Right. Don't be afraid to speak when you see another face that allegedly look like you." Yes. And they looked at me, and they said, like, right on, or you know it. But at first, I think they wouldn't have spoke at first. And as they walked by, a guy came out the post office. He's somewhat known in the city. I just can't think of his name. But I got in a conversation with him. He said, "Yeah, I see you all the time on TV." And I asked him, I said, "What do you fellowship?" He said, "I'm with the African Epistle AME. So he said, "I watch your show." So I said, "Well, keep watching the shows that I'm on in New Orleans." So just want to give him a shout out. This man that's, I think he might even be a minister of AME. That's one thing. The next quick thing, the year that you said AME started after slavery, well, Black Wall Street started 6 years after AME had Africa Pistol, however you say it, our organization had started. Black Wall Street started 1797, and slavery had started 1619, and that didn't stop these people to doing the Black Wall Street. That they were so brilliant that they started 173 years after slavery, and they were bigger than the United States Wall Street that the United States government had to bomb them in 1921.
Right. For those of you watching,
2 years after slavery, but Black Wall Street was so big and so mighty that the United States government bombed them, and they came out of slavery.
Right. Dave, for those of you that are watching by Facebook, you may not have been able to hear what the Apostle was talking about, but he was just commenting on Black Wall Street and the economic prosperity that some blacks enjoyed even during the days of slavery. So, when we get our mind adjusted, we can understand that it's all right. It's all right for a black man, a black woman, to be able to match their subjects and verbs, to speak that type of English. It's all right for a black man and woman to respect each other. It's all right for black men and women to have wealth. It's all right. You're no less black because you present yourself groomed. You're no less black because you speak a language and speak English with your proper agreement between your subjects and verb. You're no less black because you have some wealth. You're no less black, and it's nothing new. Okay, this is going back, even back during the height of slavery. Thank you for joining us, Apostle, and sharing that information.
Hey, can I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
When slavery had started, like I say, 1619, like I said, just 173 years while slavery was going on, these brilliant black people, many of them had came out of slavery and many of them were free. They started Black Wall Street in 1792 when a lot of other blacks were slaves. These blacks were not slaves, and they were millionaires in 1792 while slavery was going on. Yes, 173 years after slavery started, and slavery was not even finished until 1865. In 1792, they was boss with their minds. Brilliant.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Apostle. And I thank you for highlighting the fact you see now a lot of the media speaking about 500 years that slavery 500 years as far as 1619, the recordings of the first slaves being brought here in the United States. And as I say now, that's 500 years. Okay? Brother Butch, thank you for joining us on Facebook. And I understand that we have lost our Facebook feed. We're trying to get that back together. But while we're doing that, and again, Apostle, you still there, Apostle? All right. Well, while we're trying to get that Facebook feed back together, we're going to go on with our words of inspiration coming out of the book of Exodus, chapter 10, verse 32. And before I go there, what I started talking about, and that was that when we speak about, when you see me reading about the AME, it's nothing to divide us. Okay, I know some folks might feel uneasy with this discussion about race, particularly race in the church. And when folks talk about the church, and I'm moving around, and I don't want to take and upset our producers here. I don't want to upset our producers, but I'm going to move around. I'm going to move out the shot a minute. I'm going to still continue to talk, and I'm doing that for a purpose. And again, this is live television. This is live on Facebook, and I'm trying to get. We lost our feed, our Facebook feed, and I'm trying to see if we can pull that back up. All right, so it was like a ghost. You just heard a voice. You didn't see anybody on the screen. You heard a voice. But again, this is live television. There used to be a commercial. It used to come on. Is it live or is it Memorex? Well, this is live. Okay, this is live. And we do things like that. We move around a little bit. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it. Move around a little bit more. All right, and we have a fantastic staff here. Some folks that are really professional. Thank you for putting that screen up. All right, so as I'm trying to pull us back up on Facebook, and I'm doing that, we had a nice little discussion going on Facebook. So I wanted to see if we can keep that going. That's why I'm trying to pull that up. All right. As I was saying earlier, when we look at these issues, and you heard me say earlier about the Society of Knowledge being interdenominational, come from various different backgrounds, different religions, different beliefs. But there's one belief that we share, and that's the belief, that's the knowledge that God is Almighty. If we encounter something that we're not used to, it's so easy for us to have ideas that are erroneous, okay? Ideas that are just wrong. We hear AME, and we might think that there's a certain stigma attached to it. Oh, well, that's for radical black folks, or that's just for black folks. But when we learn about it, when we get into it, and we start actually studying their beliefs, their precepts, and we find out that they are very much like some of the teachings that we might find in Roman Catholicism, the teachings that we might find in Islam, the teachings that we might find in Judaism. When we take away a lot of the ceremonies and symbols and all that extra stuff, and we come down to the nitty-gritty, come down to the very core, we find out that there are things that unite us, not divide us. Things when we were reading earlier about the formation of the AME, reading earlier about how it formed because there were members in the church that would not allow black people to kneel in the church, that they had to be either in the back or some separate section of the church. And no matter what color you are, there are folks of different colors now that feel the same way, that we shouldn't be separated and segregated, that we ought to be able to peacefully coexist. So the more we know, the closer that brings us together. And one of the things that I know, and you see it at the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the show, you saw our acknowledgement, and that's what we call it, our acknowledgement, that everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is a piece of God. Everything is a piece of God, no matter how we might classify it. Understand what I'm saying? No matter how we might classify it, good, bad, indifferent, no matter how we might classify it, it's a piece of God. All right, let's go into our words of inspiration coming out of the book of Exodus chapter 8, verses 10 through 32. And he said, tomorrow, and he said, be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. Now this is God speaking to Moses. And again, that's Exodus chapter 8, verse 10. Okay, Exodus chapter 8, verse 10. And what's happened is that God is putting plagues upon Pharaoh. And God is explaining in verse 10, he is explaining, and look, well, let's go into just 9. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, glory over me, when shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he said, tomorrow. And he said, be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. So this is not God speaking, this is Moses speaking to Pharaoh, and letting Pharaoh know that, look, all this stuff that's happening, it's happening for a reason. It's all happening according to God's plan. Yes, Pharaoh, even your heart being hardened, that's according to God's plan. God has a master plan for all time and all creation. And the reason that God is doing this is so that he can get the message out that there's none like unto the Lord our God. There is none like unto the God of the Hebrews. So that's the message that Moses was delivering to Pharaoh. And the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh. And Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite a respite, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. And now, I just slow down there for a minute, okay, just for a minute. And, you know, we touched upon that a little bit last week, that all these things that are happening is all part of God's plan. And when you look, okay, when you look, the way God is delivering this message, using not only Moses and Aaron, but using the water in the river. Remember, the first plague was turned the water into blood. Now we see God using these frogs to help deliver that message. And we just read that message that there is none like unto the Lord our God. You see, back in those days, we see God using Aaron and Moses, the water in the river, the frogs. And now here it is in the year 2019. God is using the internet, using TV broadcasts to deliver that message that God is Almighty. See, when we read about these things that God did back in the days of Moses, and I often make the statement, if God could do those things back then, okay, now, if you believe that the Bible is really being truthful, if you believe that the Bible is being factual, if you believe that this is not something that's just a made-up story, okay, if you believe that God really did cause those frogs to come up and jump around, hop around everywhere, and I understand that we're back on, on Facebook, and I'm glad that God has done that. Thank you, Messenger Ryan, for joining us on Facebook, coming out of Lafayette. But again, as I was saying, if you believe that God actually did those things back in those days, then what has changed about God? Has God lost his power? Did God become weak? Or if God didn't lose his power or its power, if God didn't lose its power, if God still has the strength to do things like use frogs to deliver a message, if God still has the strength to use other pieces of nature to deliver a message, if God still can do that, then would it be so extraordinary for God to start doing the same thing today? What I'm saying is when God has a message to deliver, when God has a task to be performed, there's nothing impossible for God to do. Nothing. No matter how weak your position might be. No matter how devoid of resources you might be. Understand something. Aaron and Moses and the Hebrews that were in Egypt, they didn't have resources. They didn't have chariots and bows and arrows and spears and swords. They didn't have that. They were slaves. But God used frogs. And we're going to read about some other things that God used, other facets of nature that God used to liberate the Hebrews. Now let me take and wrap this up, and I'm going to make it real personal for you. To liberate the Hebrews. See, there's a whole lot of us now, today, that need some liberation. See, there's a whole lot of us today that need to have our minds liberated. And when I'm saying have our minds liberated, that we need to have our eyes opened and our ears opened so that we can realize and understand exactly who we are and what we are. And I'm here to tell you that the same way God used them frogs, and we're going to read about a little bit later on how God used them flies and used all those grasshoppers to liberate the Hebrews. God can use everything and anything to liberate each and every last one of us. My prayer, as I close, my prayer is that in this upcoming week, no matter what kind of bondage we may be in, what kind of enslavement we may be in, physical, mental, emotional, that God liberates you from fear, that God blesses you and yours with peace. Until we meet again here next week on The Message, may God Almighty bless you and yours with peace.